Alright guys, so to start the instructional, I want to start with a preface to the 3 variations of the leg drag that you're going to encounter the most. I'm going to discuss the one that I like to use the most, which is the variation that we're going to be doing a lot from, but I also want to make sure that you understand that there are multiple variations to this position. So let's get started. The first variation that we're going to go over, you can lie on your side, is going to be the staple. So turn this way. So the staple happens when my left knee, so the knee that's going to be pinning his hip, is going to make contact with the mat. The reason that I call it the staple is because my shin and my ankle are going to staple his bottom leg to the mat. So in this case, Ty's bottom leg is his right leg. So this is the staple position. Okay, so both knees are on the mat. You can be in a variation of the combat base. So you can be here. You can also use your knee to pinch his hip. There's multiple ways to do this exact variation, but the overall concept of it is that this knee is on the mat. So let's turn. So this knee is here. If I don't make contact with the mat and I'm just on his bottom leg, that's fine. As long as the most important part of this is what I call the sticky hook, and it's going to be that my left leg, in this case, is going to make a hook with my ankle on his calf or his ankle. It's going to differ from person to person and from where you are, obviously in the scramble, but ultimately I want to make this connection and I want to be able to move his leg with my leg. See how I can move his leg? I'm able to do that by turning my left knee, part of me, into his belt and my left ankle out. So I'm kind of turning myself. So I'm almost at a perpendicular angle with him where I'm like this, and I'm kind of trying to drive. Now we're not talking about the pinning mechanics or how we solidify the position, which we're going to go over. So I'm not going to discuss putting his shoulder on the mat, misaligning his spine, or keeping his shoulder off the mat and putting him in a single hip position so I can attack the back. Those are all things that we're going to be getting into. Right now, I just want to discuss the body positioning. So again, I can have this knee up, right knee. I can have right knee down. But I want to make sure that my left leg for the staple variation is pinning his bottom leg. Okay? So again, these are just quick overviews. The next one is going to be the combat base. So the combat base is going to be very similar, but rather than pin his leg, his bottom leg with my leg, I'm going to keep my knee off the mat. And in this case, it's going to be the knee that was initially pinning his leg. So this is the combat base variation. So I'm here. Another thing that's very important to note, whether it's the staple or the combat base, is that my ribs are going to put pressure on his quad, and I'm going to make sure that I have a connection of my elbow and knee so that I can pin his leg. So let's turn just a little bit. So if you look, turn this way. If you look at my elbow, whether it's the staple, my elbow is really, really tight. Okay? And I'm normally grabbing the collar, or whether it's this, my elbow still has that connection with my leg. Because what is the concept of a leg drag as a whole? I'm dragging his leg across my hip line, right? So as long as I'm here, this is very important. More importantly than this is it's something that you have to feel. My ribs are putting a tremendous amount of pressure on his leg in order to keep it squeezed to my leg, like so, right? So this is so important. So between having his leg across my body, my ribs putting pressure on his leg, my elbow making a connection with my own leg, and then if I'm in the staple, hooking his leg, these are all concepts that need to be applied universally through every leg drag, right? So this is the combat base. This time this leg is up. I'm tight. My right knee is down. We see a lot of people like the Mendez brothers use this variation because when you're like this, your opponent still has freedom of his bottom leg. They try to turn into you, and then I can start to solidify my pass. So now again, to review, we have the staple. So I'm hooking his leg. This is my preferred method. I'll explain why later. Okay, my knee is on top of his leg, or it's on the mat. Okay, I'm perpendicular. My elbow makes a connection with my leg. I'm grabbing his collar. My ribs are heavy on his leg, and I'm putting pressure. So that's our staple. Our combat base, I'm on my right knee is down, my left leg is up, in this case the leg that's going to be controlling his hip. My elbow is still connected with my leg, can be at the knee, the tighter the better. My ribs are still putting pressure, I'm still holding. And then my last variation is the standing. This one I don't do nearly as often, but the standing variation, a lot of the concepts remain the same. I drag his leg across, I almost turn away, and then I clamp his leg here. I just think it's more for an athlete to do this position. It requires a little bit more athleticism. because you're kind of holding a squat and you have his leg. And when you bring into account the fact that your partner's going to be scrambling and spazzing, it can be a little bit more difficult. But people that use this really successfully are guys like Nicholas Margali. He's really good at doing the standing leg drag. So again, we're here. My elbow is still connected with my leg, guys. That's super important. My ribs are still putting a tremendous amount of pressure on his leg, so he can't pull his knee out. He tries to pull his knee. It's really hard, guys. And I'm here. And from this position, we can pass. So again, staple, combat base, standing. Staple, combat base, standing. Everything's the same, guys. We have to focus a lot on this leg. All right?